Good evening and welcome to the February 23rd, 2022 Franklin Board of Education meeting. Meeting has been properly posted. Can we have a roll call, please, Mrs. Larson?
Yes. Dr. Beer?
Here.
Dr. Kahn?
Here.
Mrs. Sapersky?
Here.
Mr. Alexandrovich?
Here.
Mrs. Witkowski?
Here.
Mr. Sprague?
Here.
We are all present.
Thank you. I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, Countrydale Elementary School presentation. I see we're all up here and smiling. Thank you for that. Mrs. Lewine or Miss Cannon?
Hi. Are we ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, we are.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Shauna LaPlante, and I'm the principal at Countrydale, formerly Shauna Cannon. So that's how my
Well, that's a long time.
That is a long time, and that's okay because I still kind of prefer Cannon anyway. So this flows better. So I am so good.
I won't go
Well, today we are going to be talking a little bit about what it's like to learn about science here in Franklin Public Schools. So obviously we have some of our students and some of our teachers here today, and we are going to be talking a little bit about Project Lead the Way. This is our second year that we've been using this science program here in Franklin. The unit that we're talking about tonight is newer to us. I don't think that our teachers even had the opportunity to teach it last year. So even our teachers are learning a little bit about this particular unit that we're going to be digging into. As our teachers and students share what they've been learning about, I want to draw your attention to some of the connections that you'll see with our core values. In particular, you're obviously really going to notice some of the innovation and how we're teaching our students about personal growth. So before I turn it over, I'll just do some quick introductions. Paula Lewine, 3rd grade teacher, Lindsay Carney, 3rd grade teacher, Allison Palmer, and Mackenzie Alley, and Leona Salowitz. All right, take it away.
So as Mrs. LaPlante said, this is our second year doing Project Lead the Way, but our first year doing this particular unit that we're going to be talking about today. Previously, the kids have had experience, 3rd graders did, with balance and motion, the science of flight, and environmental change. So while we've had different units going on, the structure of the units is the same. Project Lead the Way is very big on hands-on, problem-based learning, and learning how to apply these things in everyday life. The kids learn through structured activities, and as you can see, the modules are all kind of the same. There's a series of activities followed by a project and then a problem, and one builds on the other. The kids then work together. They have the opportunity to collaborate and problem solve together. They build skill sets to apply to an open-ended type of a design problem. They work on finding all kinds of unique solutions to a problem, and they really are leaders of their own learning with this model.
So in this first activity, this is really setting the groundwork for some of the background knowledge that the students need. And they start with taking a personal inventory or a survey of their own traits. Then they compile as a class classroom data for the traits that they have in their classroom. Then the students use something that we call the scientific inquiry process, which is a process that these 3rd grade scientists use to explore observations and answer questions. And really this investigation or this activity here allows students to appreciate the variation of traits that are in our classroom.
After taking our traits survey, we collected data as a class to see
which traits appear more often than others. As you can see on the screen, some of the most common traits included tongue rolling, dimples, and freckles.
Okay. Now, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to remind you, this is third grade science, okay? So, and you will be amazed. So in this next activity, the students explore their inherited traits. And they learn that some inherited traits are what are called multifactorial. And I'll remind you, because I'm sure you all remembered that, those are the traits that can be influenced by the environment. Like you can have a certain amount of intelligence, but it'll bump it up if you read more, okay? So you can enhance it with more reading. The students would identify traits in humans and animals. We did a lot of research initially using an animal and talking about what kind of traits it had. And then they apply what they've learned to select traits for a Pluto, which is a fictitious animal. So they learn about traits, decide which traits are going to be the best for that animal in order for it to survive. The selected trait must be something, again, that helps that animal survive in its environment.
We spent time reading different scenarios for a made-up animal, the Pluto. That's really loud. We decided on different inherited traits as well as environmental traits that would benefit the Pluto for its survival. An example of this was when winter came early in the habitat and we had to decide which traits would be best to help the Pluto survive.
And then in the third activity, students expanded this background information of understanding of inherited traits. They learned that organisms or living things have 2 copies of their genes, and these copies, otherwise known as alleles, can be dominant or recessive. Then they apply this understanding of dominant and recessive alleles to create Punnett squares in 3rd grade.
We created Punnett squares for different seed shapes. When there is a parent with 2 dominant alleles, there is only one outcome for the offspring. When both parents have a recessive allele in their genotype, there is a chance for the offspring to have a recessive gene. Well, I can taste PTC, but my parents and my grandparents do not taste it. PTC means stuff like broccoli tastes bitter.
Okay. And that was something that Leona picked up on right away, and I think she interviewed parents, grandparents, to see if they were able to taste the bitterness, if broccoli and things like that tasted bitter to them. So she took that off on her own, so that was really great. And I believe, Dr. Miller, you were in our classroom when we were doing the Punnett squares thing, so you saw how this goes. So this next part, traits through the generations, the kids are working with simple plants. They have a fictitious species of plant that only has a few alleles, so they keep it very simple. And you see over on the far left, there's those 2 parent plants. So the students observe plant 1 and 2. Again, they're creating those Punnett squares to predict the genetic outcome. They combine the alleles from plant 1 and 2 to create baby plants. And if you can see up on the screen, the brown paper bags have 2 copies of each allele in each. So they pick 1 out of each, and that kind of helps determine what the baby plant is going to look like. They use what they've learned from their previous activities to determine the phenotype, which, as you remember, that's what the thing looks like. The phenotype is what you see for each inherited trait based on the genotype.
The first step was to look at both parent plants, which are on the left of the screen, and we learned that both parent plants had both a dominant allele and a recessive allele. The dominant allele is the form of gene that shows its phenotype whenever present. A phenotype is a visible trait or ability of an organism or living thing.
Next, we selected 1 allele from plant 1 and 1 allele from plant 2 for a variety of traits. This meant there was a chance of getting 2 dominant alleles, 2 recessive alleles, or 1 of each. These traits included stem length, stem color, thorns, flower shape, flower color, flower position, leaf color, and leaf shape. A capital letter represents a dominant allele and the lowercase letter represents a recessive allele.
For example, dominant traits are traits that showed up in the parent simple plants, such as a tall green stem with thorns, a red flower with round green leaves. From the data we collected on the various traits, we then had to determine the phenotype of each trait. Once we determined our phenotypes, it was time to build our baby sample plants.
And you can see just really quickly the data that the kids had to keep track of. So they really did a lot of very scientific work, and it was really pretty amazing.
And then this is the final piece, the problem, and this is the very open-ended where the students are really taking charge of their own learning and taking everything we've learned so far and kind of running away with it. So in this problem, students had to select 4 traits for 2 of the fictitious parent animals. Then they had to identify that genotype and the phenotype of those parent animal traits. With this information, the students followed Project Lead the Way's design process. So they explored different options, they sketched possible models that they would create, then they had to build those models, and then evaluate whether this parent offspring would be able to survive in the environment or habitat they chose.
My group's animal is named Jeff. It lives in the hot desert. One trait it has is sharp teeth from the Punnett square created from the parents' traits. The sharp teeth help the animal hunt its prey and eat its food.
My group's animal inherited green feathers from its parents. It has sharp teeth that it inherited from its parents. It also has eyes on the front of its head. Our animal has talons for digging in coral in the ocean, a small body to fit into holes, and pom-poms on its body to know if it's bumping into something.
My group's animal inherited green fur from its parents. It has sharp teeth that it inherited from its parents. It also has eyes on the side of its head. Our animal also has wings, short legs, round ears, black nose, and a small body. It lives in the tundra in holes.
And again, you see Leona's Punnett squares there, her plan for her animal.
All right, well, as you can see, there are just so many really, truly amazing aspects of our science program. I think for me personally, what I've really enjoyed seeing is how Project Lead the Way and all of the projects and activities that they do in their classrooms, it's really empowering our students to become independent, obviously very creative, and also really collaborative. So I've enjoyed, stopping in the classrooms during science. It's noisy and it's fun, and it's very interesting. And there have been times where I've had to just say like, oh my gosh, I learned this in high school. I don't know how this is happening in 3rd grade. And they're getting it. So it's really been really wonderful. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to share a little bit more about what it's like learning and teaching science in 3rd grade here in Franklin. And thank you so much to my team, my teachers, and my students. We really appreciate you guys coming out here tonight as well.
Thank you, everyone. Please feel free to not stay if you don't feel like it. I know that you have probably plenty of homework to do at home.
Good job, girls.
They were very good.
The vocabulary.
It's genetics, man. They're learning genetics in 3rd grade. Wow.
I know, Punnett squares in 3rd grade, that's nuts.
That is amazing.
Genetics is fun though.
I love
Like,
it.
I can see why 3rd graders get into it. It's kind of a cool
Especially when they can make those little creatures and,
yeah.
All right, community comment. Participants under this agenda item must be residents of Franklin Public School District, or parents, guardians of Franklin Public School District students, must state for the record their full name and address, and must limit their statements to 3 minutes with a maximum of 15 minutes for any and all comment. If the community comment is related to an agenda item, the board may respond to that comment either at the end of the community comment session or during the discussion of that agenda item. The board may not discuss a comment or question that does not relate to an agenda item per Board Policy Administrative Rules 8300. Michelle Winky, please.
Hey, so 2 meetings ago, you guys spoke about the masks and everything like that. So when people were leaving, one of the gentlemen asked you guys about the health department, specifically the Franklin Health Department. He asked about you guys not admitting that vaccinated people can spread and get COVID, and you said refer to the health department. So 2 weeks ago, I talked to Quinn, who's at the health department, about this. I said, hey, I'm just looking for information on this. And she said, yes, vaccinated people can still get COVID. Yes, they can still spread COVID. And so as we were talking a little bit more, and I said, oh yeah, I was just referred to you by our school board trying to get some more information about why there's a 2 system here for vaccinated students and staff and non-vaccinated students and staff. And so then she started going, well, it's a little bit lesser of a chance that you would get COVID or not. The fact is you can still get COVID, you can still spread it whether you're vaccinated or not. We should not be having this 2 system rules for those who are vaccinated and not vaccinated. Let your staff breathe, let your children breathe if they want to breathe. Let them wear a mask if they want to wear a mask. And that's all I have to say is your health department told me, Quinn, that you can get COVID if you're vaccinated, you can spread COVID if you're vaccinated. So unmask your staff that want to be unmasked, unmask our children, keep the masks off. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Zalecki, please. Karen with a Y, as she told me earlier today.
Why? I'm not an official Karen, but I can be. So, I'm Karen Zalecki. Do I have to give my address too? Or I have it written down. Okay, yeah. So I am a mom of 2 Countrydale kids, and they were actually very disappointed yesterday because of the ice day. Because Countrydale was their first day that they were able to go maskless because of the 1.5. And today they were actually very excited. I didn't have to drag them out of bed. So they got to get a taste of what it's like to go to school without a mask again, and it's their choice. The numbers are continuing to decline, which is fantastic. Normalcy is getting closer. Now, all we need is for you, the board members, to put it on the agenda and allow these children to return to their regular school routine with masks being made optional. I am sure you heard from parents and their views, and this is one of mine. I would like to start by asking the board members these questions. When you wear a cloth mask, how do you launder them? Do you hand wash them? Do you throw them in the wash machine? Do you think about doing an extra rinse cycle? Do you wash it with hot water, and does your machine get hot enough to effectively clean it? What soap are you using? Have you researched the ingredients that are safe to be inhaled for about 6 to 8 hours a day? Have you researched do you hang dry your cloth masks, or worst of all, throw them in the dryer with dryer sheets? Why am I asking you about basic household laundry routine? I'm asking because there's over 4,800 Franklin Public School children, and you, the board, I'm asking because the school board has voted to require them to be masked when the dashboard is above 1.5. We have a potential of over 4,800 children inhaling toxins that can have long-term effects. The board members with the medical degree should recognize these potential hazards. But it was your vote that has continued to do this, put them in harm. You mask our children because of the worry of what COVID could do for them long-term. But it has been proven already so far that our children are hardly affected from COVID effects at all. What are going to be the long-term effects from wearing these masks? Let me list some ingredients that are found in simple dryer sheets. I know some parents are doing this unknowingly. Do you know there's benzyl acetate, which is known to link to pancreatic cancer, benzyl alcohol, upper respiratory tract irritants, ethanol, linked to central nervous system disorders. You cannot mandate a household how to launder their masks, but you do make sure to wear them for 8 hours. I say risk from inhaling possible chemical toxins or even filthy, unclean masks, I see a couple, outweighs the risk of getting COVID. So I call out the board members with the medical degrees. You say that you're concerned about the health of our children. It is obvious that you don't care about their medical, social, and language problems that are occurring. You would have made masks optional a long time ago. You say that you're concerned about the effects from COVID. Have you thought about the health effects of the masks? You need to also consider the possible toxins they're ingesting daily. Unfortunately, we have some busy parents who are forced to send their kids to school with a soiled or even filthy mask, because I get letters from the school in their newsletters about it all the time. Masking must be made optional for the students. You must trust us parents to allow us to follow the guidelines and keep our children home when they're sick. Please, I ask that you bring it up for discussion again.
Thank you. Adam Wittenberg, please.
Hey, good evening. My name is Adam Wittenberg, as you all know. Start off a little bit differently tonight. I wanted to thank you and encourage you to keep on looking at the at-risk students in the high school. I was one of them. Going into my senior year, I was 1 credit shy of graduating, and because of an incident where I missed 5 weeks of school and had to fight and won to get back in, I was then told I couldn't graduate with my class. There's nothing I could do to make up 2 half credits, 5 weeks worth of school. And I believed in my school. I was a pirate through and through, played multiple sports, was in band, marching band, everything. So what I'm saying is, had somebody reached out to me and given me a plan to graduate with my class, I know it won't work for everybody, but it would have made a massive difference in my life. So I thank you for looking at those stats. It's, when we looked for a school, we looked for a school that we could get behind that was really highly rated, and that is why we went to Franklin. And my wife doesn't have as much school spirit as I did, but I really was a pirate through and through, and that ruined a lot of things in my life and took me a long time to get back on track and get my diploma. Now, with the masks, I've been trained in hazmat, I've been trained in sanitation, I've been certified in hazmat, and in doing that, you get trained in PPE. You learn the proper way to use, dispose, and treat the items you wear and use on a daily basis. That's the same thing with masks. Masks are made for specific purposes. Cloth masks, paper masks were never designed to be used as a means to stop a viral pathogen. Yeah, you wear them in the hospital, you know, if you're sick and you're coughing and sneezing to try to stop the water droplets. I get my information not from the media, but by doing research, looking at history, following. When I do business with a new company, I look at their track record. I look at who they are, where they've been. And the same thing is true with the CDC and FDA. What is their track record? What do they support? And throughout this whole thing, they've never supported or really encouraged, promoted people to eat their fruits and vegetables, to eat certain things, stop eating so much sugar, get outside, make sure you get sun, because sun is so important for your immune system. You need that vitamin D. And even with Franklin, in the summer and spring, even the fall, to have more classes outside so our little ones can get sun and get out of the masks. Now, I know they're not wearing masks now, but the 4K students still are. And it's time for them to get out of masks. I'm encouraging and asking the school board to treat the 4K students as the rest of the other students. My little one goes to school every day asking not to wear a mask because he sees all these other kids maskless. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 6. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. School board announcements. Any announcements by school board members? Thank you. School board calendar, the regular Board of Education meeting. Regular Board of Education meeting, both Wednesday, March 9th, 2022, and Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022, at 6 p.m. here at the ECC. Item 9, District Administrator update. Dr. Miller, please.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Well, we've had an eventful week with our school closure this Tuesday. It was somewhat of a challenging call at 4 a.m., but as the day progressed, I was pleased that our staff and students were safe at home. I'd like to share, however, that while most of our staff were home, our custodial staff was expected to report to work. During school closures, our custodians are told to arrive when they can safely so they can do snow removal, and in this case, repeatedly salt our walkways and our large parking lots. Tonight, you'll be hearing about the condition of our facilities and the needs that we have. As you hear what our needs are, I'd like to point out that without the great custodial team under the direction of Mr. Stumvall, our needs would be much greater. We have an amazing crew of custodians. Also this week, I can report that we continue to see fewer positive cases of COVID-19 in our schools. Unfortunately, our absence rates continue to reflect other viruses and illnesses. Really, spring can't come soon enough. Due to the downward trend of COVID-19 cases, we've now moved back to sharing COVID dashboard only once a week on Fridays. In addition, COVID testing still continues within the district for families and staff, but beginning next week, we'll be moving our family testing option to Forest Park Middle School from the ECC. And all the details around those updates and practices will be shared in the Friday newsletter. We have a lot of other news to share in that Friday newsletter. Just a couple of things. Franklin High School has 3 national merit semifinalists that have now moved on to become finalists. One of our 6th graders tied for 2nd place at the regional spelling bee and is moving on to the final rounds before going to state. And then at the state level, we're getting involved in the WIA regional state competitions this weekend for boys and girls basketball. And next weekend, we begin the WIA wrestling and gymnastic meets at the state level. So you can see links and ticket information also in that Friday newsletter. And that concludes my report.
Thanks. I believe our boys wrestling team is in the state tournament for the team tournament, aren't they?
And it's been a long time since they've been there. And I think 3 boys qualified for individual state.
Oh, thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Reports, presentations, and other school board business, academic excellence, scholarship recipient approvals. Mr. Volo, please.
Good evening, everyone. So submitted for your approval are our annual academic excellence and technical excellence scholarship memos. Remember, those are the state scholarships, $2,250 per year. The academic excellence is for 8 semesters, tech excellence 6 semesters, and if a student does not use it, it goes to the next student in line. The best part of this approval is then we're also able to then publicize and recognize those students for the great things they've done over the course of 4 years, or 3.5 years really. So they're exceptional seniors, every one of them, and if we could get more scholarships, the state limits us to 4 based on our enrollment, but I would kindly ask that they are approved. I'll take any questions before that, but again, it's a great part of the year to celebrate our seniors, and it's part of a semester that we're working towards that graduation and commencement.
I forget from year to year, Mr. Volo, but is there, are these people listed, have they been talked to already and have accepted? I know there's sometimes with the technical ones, there's
Typically not yet. So like our approval, then we speak to them, and as we go through the semester and students start to declare where they're going, where they're not going, then we try to make sure the next person in line is aware and knows they can take advantage of it. And even if they leave us, we try to help make sure the next person up can take advantage of that still if we're aware of somebody not going where they said they're going to go. So for example, academic excellence, it's a state school institution, right? Tech excellence, a student might say, I'm going to this tech school, and then they might decide in June to go somewhere else. So we really try to stay on top of that to help the next person take advantage of that if they can.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the academic excellence scholarship recipients.
So moved.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm also looking for a motion to approve the technical excellence scholarship recipients as offered.
So moved. Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Item C, summer school course approvals. Ms. Sundstrom, please.
Hi. I'm coming to you with our 2022 summer program bulletin and hoping that we can approve this. It will be in person again this year, and we have a really great mix of enrichment opportunities for our students, K-12, and then we do have the hope toward first-time credit and some credit recovery courses at the high school as well. And we're continuing our vision around bringing that joy of learning during the summertime to our students as well. So I would love any questions you have before you're considering the approval.
Is transportation always been provided?
We are going to offer transportation. Last year was the first year we were able to provide it for high school, so we'll continue that. So all levels can get transportation during the regular running. We do have various things that happen outside that court time, and then we do not offer transportation for those unique circumstances.
I noticed an item for the high school of college counseling, which I like. Is there a component of that that includes how to get scholarships, different scholarships from around the country, and some of them appear to be hard to find and people don't know about them? Is that something that we do generally and in the summer especially?
We do generally support understanding the scholarships. I know our student services team at the high school does a lot of work around that, and there's quite a bit of advertising to our juniors and seniors around that year-round. The college counseling I'm also very excited about. Actually, this came from a community comment at the beginning of the year where somebody recommended this as something for us to consider. So technically, it'll be our first time offering it. We do have some staff that have already indicated some interest in teaching it, so I think we could incorporate pieces of that into it as well.
Is there an opportunity, I know we're offering some things for the first time, or for not credit recovery, but first-time credit. Is there a way for kids who have already signed up for their classes for next year, if they want to take that class in the summer, does that change? Does that change what's going to be going to be offered, or can they change their classes for the fall?
Yeah, in the good news category is I'll work really closely with the student services team. So if students sign up for these things and then they earn the credit in the summer, the list of all the students at the high school and what credit they earn goes to all the school counselors, and then they explicitly check each of their students' like four-year plan, and like, yes, if they suddenly earned PE credit or they recovered English credit or something, then they'll take them out of that class and put them in the next appropriate one. So the counselors are really involved, and they do a lot of work at the end of the summer program to make sure the kids are in the right classes for the fall.
Congratulations on finding adequate staff to be able to offer all those first-time credit classes. I know that wasn't easy.
To be clear, like, this is what we're hoping to offer. We're still working on
Okay.
staffing.
Well, best wishes.
So
Good
we're
luck.
still in the best wishes phase.
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Can I ask a question about band? You have the 7th and 8th grade band runs during the whole summer school program time at the middle school, but 6th grade band remains as kind of like an introductory, just 1 week class. Is there a reason why that wouldn't be offered as like that full?
This was through conversations over the last few years with the music teachers who kind of indicated that needs and sort of where the students are is really different. So it sounds like with my understanding, and I don't want to totally speak for them, but my understanding is with band 7 and 8, the students are like familiar with their instruments. So coming in and doing a class every day during that time works out maybe a little bit better than if they're like introducing themselves to the instruments where they might need more focused attention is like my understanding of it. So they had like suggested that doing the band camp for the beginning students might work out a little smoother than like the class every day.
Okay, thanks.
And then I think they bring in we have like a little bit higher student to teacher ratio during the beginning band camp for that kind of intensive get to know your instrument time.
Did the band offerings come from a let's try and recover some band students place?
Honestly, they've always been pretty interested is my understanding. So like, I mean, I've only worked with the summer program the last 3 years. So like they've been interested every year. And even when we had the online summer, for those of you that were part of that, like they offered online classes, just like over the Google Meets. So I think like this is a pretty passionate group of teachers, and so they've always kind of wanted to offer it. I don't know that they're like specifically doing that in response to that.
Well, even one way or another, I'm glad it's happening. 'Cause,
For the ACT prep, is it just an online, and will the students have any option of like taking tests and getting scored and getting input in person?
Yeah, this specific example, I believe they do practice questions or tests with the online work through Zello. I haven't personally supported it, so I don't know exactly all the details, but I believe there's like a practice assessment with it.
And for the first time credits, are the students allowed to take 2 credits when they can they take 2 classes at for the summer? They can only take one, like American government, or only IM3, for example, or?
They would be like, at the high school, there's kind of time for 2 blocks of classes. So like theoretically could have 2 classes. And I don't know, a good number of our kids will take 2 of the sections, but some will only take 1.
Do you have dates, or do you know when dates would be available for the ones that are not going to run at that time? Just, I mean, speaking as a parent trying to make summer plans, if you were.
Yeah,
if
great
you,
question.
Like for your college one, if you have, if you're saying it's 3 days, do you know yet, or when will you know what those 3 days might be?
In my hopes that we could offer a few different times, but enrollment would affect that. And I want to work with the teachers. We, right now, we aspire to put this in front of the community on March 14th. So I would have all those dates ready to go before that's registration.
Any other questions?
And if a student for high schools, for example, they take a credit in the summer and they have also selected that credit for the fall, will they get a free period, or they can replace with something else at that time?
They'll most likely replace it with something else. I mean, our students usually fill their schedules pretty well. I think if they're a senior, if they didn't have a free period, then they could they could make it a free period, I think. But otherwise, they would replace it with something else.
All right, any other questions? I'm looking for a motion to approve the 2022 summer school courses as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Buildings and Grounds Annual Report. Mr. Stumble and Mr. Milzer, please.
Yes, tonight we have representatives joining us from our architectural firm, Plunkett Racich Architects, our construction management firm, J.P. Cullen. Again, this is the team that designed and built Forest Park. They conducted a facility condition assessment of our buildings, and they'll be explaining the results. Mr. Stumbo will be discussing the Buildings and Grounds report, and they'll take questions after both reports are presented. And I know they have a slide introducing themselves.
We do.
So we'll get that going. And I will let them get started when they're ready.
That was easy. Excellent. There we go. All right, good evening, everybody. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces from our work in the past here in Franklin. Quick introductions, who our team is. I am Nick Kent. I'm an architect at Plunkett Racich Architects, and I have the great honor and privilege of leading our K-12 education design team. So this is all that our team does, is work in the world of K-12 schools all over our state. I will introduce one guy who slipped out on us tonight and went skiing with his family instead of doing some real work. This guy in the purple shirt up here, Devin Kack, he is one of our great educational designers, and he is the lead designer for Forest Park right across the street. But it's not just us. We have a whole team of people, and one of our best is with us right next to me. Say hi, Paige.
Hi, I'm Paige. So I do a lot of the grunt work.
It's the real work, Paige.
I did the work. So I've been involved with the Forest Park Middle School, the renovations here at the ECC, and also the addition at Pleasant View.
So good evening, Dan Wargalette. I'm currently our operations manager for JP Cullen in our Milwaukee office. We were doing some math on when we built the nice building across the street, and we all had different opinions of what year that was. And it
felt like last year, but it wasn't.
It was
6 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
2016.
So during that project, I was their senior project manager. I've since moved into operations. And one person that is not here right now is Mike Brazin, our pre-construction estimator. He had a family issue and couldn't make it, so he regrettably couldn't be here.
I'm Zach Albert. I was a site engineer during the construction of Forest Park, but now project manager, working on several projects throughout the district over the last 5-6 years with Casey.
And Casey Stumble, the manager of Building and Grounds for the district.
Excellent. So the information that we're bringing you tonight is not quite as exciting as building a brand new school building, but it is very important information. We have been tasked, our team, with doing a ground-up assessment of all of our facilities, with the exception of Forest Park, including this building here. And what we are looking for when we walk through these buildings are kind of all of the things that we need to think about addressing over time from a maintenance standpoint. How do we keep these buildings the great educational tools that they are, and how do we keep them in the best shape and give Casey and his team really a good guide for what to kind of prioritize, what to kind of look at, and what to proactively start thinking about as we go into the future. So in addition to those of us who are here tonight, we had a whole team of engineers looking at the electrical systems, the plumbing systems, the mechanical systems, kind of all the guts of all these buildings. And we walked every square foot of every one of these buildings over several different days to really look at all the various parts and pieces that make up the buildings. I'm sure you can all read every one of those numbers up there on the screen. This is really just an example of what one of the tools is that we use when we walk through these buildings. And this is a listing of the kind of referenced service life, or the kind of what we could expect out of various building components, various building systems. It's not absolute by any means. It's sort of a guideline, right? You know, when we think about how long a roof on our house might last, it's, 20, 25 years. You may get 40 years out of it. But we have to have some kind of a guideline that we kind of evaluate these systems against. So this is just kind of an example of some of the things that we're looking at, and kind of how we kind of gauge where the condition of various components and systems is within the building. We're going to show you kind of a summary and overview of our findings tonight. And we found over the years that one of the best ways to kind of communicate how systems are holding up, or where we might have some priorities, is to use the good old-fashioned stop-and-go light image. So when we see things that are green, those are things that are in good condition. They're basically, you've got 15 plus years of service life. They're really things that, we need to be aware of, but you're in good shape with these. When we get down to the middle, fair, these are things that they're okay. They're not brand new anymore, but you probably have, good 5+ years of life left in there. And then when you get all the way down to red, into the poor category, and the good news is there are very, very few of those things that we have here in the district. The buildings are very well maintained and very proactively maintained. Those are things that are basically at the point of failure, things that, and we see these in schools quite a bit, where we do see systems that you wonder, how is this even working? How do we have heat in these buildings? We don't have those conditions in many cases here at Franklin. Then we look at things in different categories. We're looking at accessibility in the buildings. How do we meet the needs of all of our students and community members and staff members to access the buildings? We look at safety and security. So that's primarily looking at fire alarms, things that involve life safety, and how do we keep all of our occupants safe. The exterior envelope of the building, so roofs, windows, doors, masonry, brick, how is that held up over time and where do we need to maintain things? Interior surfaces, a lot of that is finishes, carpets that are worn, or maybe tiles that have started to crack or deteriorate within the building. And then a big piece, and we'll hear some of those things as we go through our analysis tonight, the systems. So that's our heating, cooling, electrical, plumbing systems. And those are things that, of course, take a lot of wear and tear over time. So those are kind of the things that we look at as we go through these buildings. And Paige is going to kind of walk us through at a high level just what some of those things look like at a building by building level. But again, the overall impression of our buildings is this is a very well maintained school district. And yes, there are maintenance items that do need to be addressed. But overall, these buildings, for in many cases their age, are in pretty good shape. So that's a good thing. Paige, you want to give us a little brief summary of these buildings?
Yeah, so like Nick said, we went through all of the buildings over architecturally a course of 3 days, and then engineers over another course of a couple days. So Ben Franklin was built in 1998, so it's just hitting that about a little over 20-year mark. And it's in good to fair condition. So not much has been done since it was built, but it is in decent condition.
Lots of green. Green is good.
Yeah, green is good. So some of the things we noted as more higher priority items is the building envelope. There was just some brick discoloration that we're suggesting some investigation on, just to make sure that there's nothing that could progressively become an issue. Interior materials, we noted chalkboards in this building, so that's just something more with general classroom conditions. And then electrical item is that the fire alarm system is obsolete. So we're recommending replacing with a new system. It's code compliant. Everything is code compliant from when it was built, but it's something that in a new building, you would have to have this type of system.
This is a very common item that we find in schools as codes have changed over time. So this is nothing to be alarmed about. It's just something to note for future.
Countrydale. So Countrydale is the oldest school in the district, so there's some areas that are showing more wear than say Ben Franklin. So you're seeing more items in the fair or fair to poor categories. Nothing with immediate concerns, just some systems that are, or some features that are a little older. So some of those include building envelope, just maintaining the water tightness. We found some water discoloration on the walls and soffits, and sections of roofing that are a little older. And then some interior materials like the flooring and some casework that's a little worn. And then plumbing. This is the only school that does not have an automatic sprinkler system, so we are recommending that in the future that does get put in. And again, the fire alarm system at this school as well.
Right.
Pleasant View, we have mostly good to fair. The systems are a little older in the older section of the building, so the 53 original portion. The 95 and the new addition are in good shape.
It's a really good looking entry, right, Paige?
Yes. So again, building envelope, there's just some things like some roofing sections, I think potentially this one, and then some rusting sills and small cracks.
Pretty minor stuff.
Yep, very minor. And then again, flooring.
Mhm.
Robin Wood, so 1967 with a couple additions in 95. So this one is also a little bit in the older conditions for some of the buildings, like the envelope. Mostly of concern was the roof, which Casey will talk about in his roof report.
Mhm.
And then a couple just water tightness around the windows, just making sure everything is sealed up.
Right, and there was just one little note on here that we wanted to make. Codes have changed since this building was built. So should any renovations, significant renovations happen at this building in the future, or should we consider it? There are some modifications that we would need to make to some of our egress routes. It's fine the way it is now, but it's just something to be aware of as we think into the future, if there were to be any projects there, that we don't want to be surprised that there'd be some modifications that would have to happen. Okay.
Southwood Glen, kind of like Ben Franklin, it was built in 91 and hasn't really been touched since. So in general, things are in good condition for their age, but there are some areas that are aging, specifically the roof. The metal roofing is starting to rust, and some of the metal sills and lintels. And then the interior, there's just some, again, flooring and minor casework replacements needed. And then again, the fire alarm system. Kind of a note on all the schools. And then the high school, as you guys probably know, it was kind of built in sections, and
Many
so
sections.
You can tell when you walk through the building that you're in the older section or the new section. So it's kind of hard to judge this one as an overall school. Obviously, the new addition and renovation work is in very good condition, but some of the older sections with some roofing and a couple exterior envelope, again, water tightness concerns were noted. Interiors mostly noted, like the lower level flooring and ceilings were in older condition, starting to crack and discolor a little. Electrical, just upgrading to LEDs and more energy efficient systems. And then the pool, we had a pool consultant also do an investigation on the pool, and they came up with a couple different options of maintenance. So there's some things with the ADA accessibility, some water leak, pool gutter, and current code deficiencies. So they kind of created a few options. One would be just fix it as it is, make sure it's not leaking and nothing's broken. Then another option where you replace it in place, so you're kind of just recreating it, which would make it last longer, but you're not really making it better.
Right.
And then the other option would be to do a complete tear down and build a new pool to today's current codes. And
The pool is one of our larger areas of interest when we walk through that building, which is why it's noted separately.
yeah, and then the ECC, where we are here, see, it's gotten a facelift recently, so a lot of the conditions are very good now. Lighting was replaced and everything. So just a couple extra envelope things around the loading dock and HVAC replacements noted.
So after PRA put together the walkthrough with the engineers and their list of all the architectural items, we kind of stepped in and met and went through the list. And started going through as far as what does this mean dollars and cents wise. So we have a team of full-time estimators, and we're a 130-year-old company. We have offices in Madison and Janesville and here, so we have a lot of good school district experience around the state. So we have a very big historical cost database that we constantly are updating. So we took all of that. What was nice about the list for this that Paige went through is it's quantifiable. There wasn't a lot of just, let's say, generic or something we have to square foot. So we're able to get some good quantities to apply current market prices to. The market right now is moving a lot, not in the right direction, unfortunately. But the pricing you see up here is in today's current dollars, doesn't reflect any inflation to say this is gonna, this repair would happen in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. It's just in today's dollars. A good thing for everyone, realistically, maybe not for PRA, but there's not a lot of architectural engineering that's needed for this work. It's a lot of Casey's expertise and industry partners, subcontractors that can kind of get to the point of repair, replacement type of work. So there's no fees for that in there, up there as well. There's some contingencies that we always built into some of this because it is somewhat gray. We brought in industry. We use our suppliers, subcontractor community to get input on things that we don't have, let's say, good historicals, or to just double check our historicals that we carry. And then Paige went through a majority of the stuff, but I would reiterate, going through the list, sometimes when you see a list like that, can be huge system problems, huge envelope problems, and there's not a lot of that at all. So it was a good list to go through for us. So just on the board is just a summary of each building that Paige went through and kind of break it on a pie chart of just kind of the systems that Nick explained at the beginning.
What is the blue color? I can read electrical for the maroon, exterior for the orange.
Interiors?
Interior, okay.
Yeah, so that'd be the flooring, the ceiling tiles, some of that stuff, maybe windowsills, stuff like that.
Dr. Beer, that's also on page 6 of your report.
Oh, yeah.
The exact same numbers.
So we totaled that up of everything we went through, and then Nick mentioned the pool, and the pool is, like Paige said, there is we PRA engaged a pool consultant. We used that report and engaged some pool specialty contractors to give us some more specifics. The renovation, the range there is really because you can do some cosmetic repairs and get some things fixed one way. But if you start exploring further, there's probably some unknowns that are just hard to quantify at this point in a dollar sense. So that's why that range is so big on the renovation of the pool, because you really don't know what you're gonna find until you start exploring. So that's why that range is so big, and it gets to the cosmetic up to pretty much a replacing kind in the spot. And then if it was part of a larger addition to the high school, there's definitely some savings that could be incorporated if you're just incorporating into the building as you expand the high school for gymnasium or other building addition stuff.
All right. I'll get into my part of the presentation tonight. So as you've seen in my previous reports and by our guest speakers tonight, we have presented a plan that accomplishes 2 things. Number 1, we'll proactively replace systems that need to be updated before it's too late. In other words, before complete failure of a system. And number 2, by spreading this work out over multiple years and into the foreseeable future, we can even out the number of resources coming due at one time while addressing our current needs. We had a successful year, but a very challenging year in completing our 21 school year plan due to global material and labor shortages. For the 21 school year, we set out to complete $760,000 in capital improvements that included the final phase of carpeting at Southwood Glen, HVAC replacements at the high school, roofing, and ADA code compliance and remodeling of staff restrooms at Countrydale, along with turfing our softball and baseball fields. As you know, we set out with a doable timeline to turf our fields due to losing the DPW fields and at the same time creating a more available and usable green space for our community. Unfortunately, we were unable to start that project this year. I had the design, materials, contractors, DNR permits ready to go by the second week of July. we experienced massive delays from the city of Franklin and did not receive permits to proceed with the project until December of this last year of 2021. Therefore, turfing is now scheduled for the first week after the ball season ends in late June. And as decided last year, that project is being funded from Fund 46. Going into the 22 school year, we will continue with the multiple year plan as shown in the rest of the report and presented to you tonight. We recognize that maintenance needs are not predictable and could change at a moment's notice. We also remain flexible in order to keep our work aligned with the priorities of the district. We will continue with our roofing needs and focus heavily on Robinwood and replace 17,900 square feet of roof this year because unfortunately these sections are declining faster than expected due to age and the freeze-thaw cycles here in Wisconsin. At the high school, our HVAC plan includes replacing 11 units that will now have the ability to provide air conditioning to the lower shop rooms and the adjoining classrooms at the high school. The total estimated cost for these two projects will be $810,000. As we continue to invest in projects that need to be done, we are also improving energy efficiency in our buildings. An example of this is replacing HVAC units from the mid-1990s. When replaced, these new units increase energy efficiency by 15 to 20%. Another way we strive to conserve energy is by ensuring our building envelopes, as mentioned by the architects here, ensuring that our envelopes are sealed properly, i.e. roofs and walls. Both roof replacements and HVAC replacements continue to be a high priority this year, or year after year. On the other side of things, our mechanical contractors, building head custodians go to great lengths to make sure our mechanicals operate efficiently as possible and stick to operating schedules, temperature settings, as well as our unoccupied settings outside our normal school day or when school is not in session. In fall of 2021, PRA and JP Cullen were hired to bring in experts in their fields, as well as mechanical, structural engineers, plumbers, and electricians to evaluate the current state of our buildings. In the report provided to you on page 6, titled Unscheduled Projects, we have grouped together estimated cost of projects that fall into the following categories: exterior, interior, electrical, plumbing. These projects were identified by these experts as recommended in order to keep our buildings safe and well maintained for years to come. That is the end of my part tonight. Do you guys have any questions for any of us up here?
The turfing of the fields?
Yes, sir.
That was delayed till December?
We were scheduled to start hopefully early August, late July. We did not receive permits from the city until December 10th of 2021.
What has that done to the cost?
It has not increased or decreased the cost. We had everything locked in.
Good.
So.
As far as utility costs and efficiencies, do you have measures that you use to, I mean, how do we know that we are as efficient as we can be? Do you have standards comparing to other buildings that, I mean, around the state? What kind of measures do you use to?
We did not specifically look at any utility costs and energy efficiencies specifically on our side. I don't know, Nick, if you guys or your engineers did.
No.
We have not gotten into, or I have not personally gotten into our energy management from building to building.
Do we know based on, I assume that the new middle school is considerably more efficient than Countrydale. Do we know based on the middle school versus the square footage in the middle school versus square footage of Countrydale, how much more efficient that is and how, is that a good way to judge? Is that a good way to judge efficiency?
Or is it apples and oranges?
Yeah.
It's kind of little apples and oranges.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough. I'll just answer that on how you can compare. You have to be a little bit careful when you have to be a little bit careful about directly comparing one building to another, right? Because there are many different variables. So yes, generally speaking, the middle school should be operating on generally a more efficient basis per square foot than your elementary schools. One, because it's new, and it's built to higher standards than those older buildings were. But also it's a larger volume of air that's enclosed, so kind of by default, the larger volume is more efficient to operate. Now, a more applicable comparison might be the high school. Say if the high school were the same age, but there you have to be careful too, because we'll just point at the pool. Elements in that building are big energy hogs, like a pool, or larger volumes of space. So you just have to be a little bit careful when you compare those buildings.
Go ahead, Linda.
But there's things we can do too. You mentioned you really haven't gotten into energy management, but that's something we could get into.
Absolutely.
Managing, I mean, all these HVAC controls also are a factor, I'm sure, in efficiencies. But we just haven't, like, we could compare ourselves to ourselves also to see how efficient we could be. So we just haven't done any of that.
Yes.
That's
that is
still an area that we could tap into.
That is something that I would like to address here going in the future. But the reality is we have some big items here
Right.
that we need to be
Okay.
focusing on. So that's what I've been focusing on.
I also want to say that, you know, your stop-by thing is really, it's a point in time, right? But really, these things are somewhat predictable in terms of how materials decline and wear and tear.
Correct.
So we don't really have we're not predicting anything at this point. We're just looking at this list as it is today. But is it possible to predict things also? Do we have carpeting in our classrooms? Do we know when it should be replaced? Are we doing any of those replacement plans that are somewhat predictable and known? It can be known. We're not doing any of that either at this point.
As we look at a planning horizon, we're looking at a shorter horizon here. The longer the horizon gets, the more things are going to wear out. If we use a 100-year timing horizon, we have to replace every one of our buildings. That's shocking. So we know that when we get done with this, there will be other things that need to be done. There will be floors that need to be done. But some of those floors on there, it probably says that they last 25 years, and some of our floors have gone 40 years. So when you start introducing that variability to 10 different systems and come up with a number, I'm not sure the number is that valuable. So we're moving ahead with replacing the things that we need to at this point, and each year we'll start to look towards the future and add to this list.
I actually took a different perspective, which was that I appreciated how sort of predictable and logical the next 3 years were laid out according to all of these different variables. And you were able to produce a fairly stable budget request from year to year that accomplishes the goal of addressing the immediate needs that you identified. So I just really appreciated the depth and the thought that went into this report. So thank you. I was just curious, when was the last time we had a similar overview done? How often do you see school districts doing this type of a thing? When's the last time we had this done?
So I've been in this role for 3 years now, almost 4.
So 3 years ago?
This is the first time.
Just kidding.
First time.
Maybe Mr. Miller can.
Yeah, this is the first time we've had an outside companies come in and take a look.
Do you think it's brought did you see a value added by having the outside people come in and do this work? Did it reveal things that you weren't aware of?
I would say the value is getting a good list together and having good pricing on what it will cost to do it.
Sure.
And getting that backup opinion that these are the most important things that we should be concentrating on. I don't think anything on the list is shocking to us, but it helps as we're moving forward to have these experts saying, yes, this is where you should be spending your funds.
From the industry side, how often do you suggest that this is done?
You're gonna be like our dentist and say every 6 months?
Right, we'll schedule the next one before we leave.
Right.
So an industry kind of standard is we say every kind of 5 to 10 years, you really need to kind of do a thorough examination of buildings. And, just to kind of put this district in particular in perspective, in some ways, this is a little bit unusual that this district has a long history of proactively looking at the facilities. It's not normal, I will say, that we come and present so much green on a study like this. More often than not, we're called into districts who have not kept up with their facilities for whatever reason. And we're at the point where it's not 4.2 million or 4.178 million, it's 20 million that we're presenting. And then it's a whole different conversation. So I'm not surprised at all that Mr. Milzer kind of said there really aren't surprises in here. That's a good thing that there aren't surprises.
How
And that's
much?
a testament to the work of y'all and your team. So
Agreed.
thanks, Mr. Milzer and Mr. Stonewall. It's great.
Out of the $4.2 million, how much of that is included in the HVAC and roofing that we're already scheduled to do?
So that is, this costing is removing most of the HVAC and roofing.
Yes, it does include the HVAC, but only the things that are in the coming, I think, 3 years or year or two.
Question on the sprinkler system at Countrydale, is that where you're recommending that?
I believe so, yeah.
And now, Jim, I understand that there is a reason we're not doing that, right? I mean, the city has asked us to do it, we've always said no, but there's a reason why.
I don't know if the city's asked us too much to do that, but we do not have city water at that school, and that's the only building that we don't have city water, which would provide the pressure for a sprinkler system. If you don't have that, you have to have a high-capacity well, and you have to have pumps and electric backup for all of that so that it will work at the correct time, and it has to be tested constantly to make sure that it works.
And that's really the trigger point that would compel us to then move forward with that project.
Right. If we got city water, we would install that right away. And we were close a few years back, but the neighbors along the line of bringing the water to us and to a possible subdivision, kitty corner there, did not want that to go through. So it didn't.
With the swimming pool, that's a major like expense of 3.25 million. So in your recommendation, it appears that it's better to replace rather than renovate. Am I getting it right?
Probably. And I think it would be actually our recommendation to consider that a bit more holistically. And even if full replacement were to make sense, the number, the 3.25 million, is to replace another 6-lane pool. So when you think about how functional is the pool in its current state, that's small, especially for a high school of this size. So that's kind of why we added that last item, replace that time of a larger addition. It's probably more practical to think about upgrading the pool to be more in line with a Division I high school standard, rather than replace with an undersized pool.
Is that what you're sort of planning going ahead then?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's part of a larger conversation about
Absolutely.
an addition to the high school.
I remember when I first looked at the budget, I thought, my goodness, we have a large outlay for custodial staff, but I think we're seeing now how that pays off at the back end. So again, thanks.
We talked last year about, we had gotten ahead a little bit on some of the roofing and HVAC projects. And I don't know how far ahead, Mr. Stumble, but where are we at in terms of the plan you created 2 years ago that you first brought to us?
So, sorry here. So I think we've been slightly ahead every year. We try to do a little bit more than what we need to do to maintain or to keep up with what is coming due. Because if you look at Ben Franklin, Southwood Glen, and then all the elementary schools, in their mid-90s, I guess, we added 2 elementary schools, did all those referendum work. So those systems are all coming due here or past due. So I think we're doing a little bit more than what we need to do just to maintain. So I think we're in a good spot. So if you look at page 4 in the report, we've done 1.3 million in HVAC in the last 4 years and 1.2 in roofing. So I feel like we're doing pretty good.
I agree. I was happy about it last year and I continue to be. I like the plan that you've made and I appreciate that we're gonna do more and more planning for the future so that
Absolutely.
we know we know when things are gonna come due so that we can plan for them. And I think that's important to the community and to the board. Anybody else?
I guess I have just one question. So the 4 million, 4.1 million, at this point, it's not scheduled, and someone's gonna have to schedule it, or I don't know, do we have plans?
We don't have any plans immediately on exactly which ones we would do, but we're starting that work right now. And we would start to use our capital fund for these. Again, the capital fund was not only for new things, it was for maintenance for our existing things. And we've gotten ahead on that as well. The turf project was kind of the last one on that list that we were going to do right away. So those funds would shift towards trying to complete this list as we move forward with our regular list out of our budget for doing the HVAC and the roofing and continuing with that plan. So we'll be very aggressive in trying to get rid of these and get those off the list.
And how much money is in that capital fund?
I would say about 1.7 million at this point.
Thank you.
And any of these projects have payoffs, electrical, lighting, is there any?
Yeah,
Some of them. From the lighting, from the LEDs for sure.
Will we do
And
this?
as I mentioned earlier, replacing the roofs, that's gonna help with our building envelope, heating, cooling, that's gonna retain that. HVAC alone, we're seeing 15 to 20% energy efficiency. We're getting that back. So
Some of it you'll have payoff on the building envelope stuff with masonry repairs, flashing, just to keep the integrity of the building in good shape so you don't have deterioration and mass repairs of brick and exteriors or interiors when it comes to like windowsills and caulk and stuff like that. So just maintenance of that will just extend that life and keep you from future expenses.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, item E, SWSA updates. Mrs. Witkowski and Dr. Miller, please.
Yes, there's a document that was included in the board docs that I'd like to call your attention to. And this outlines really, there's some links in there that you can click on. That'll get you information as to what is going on at the state level at this time. At this point, there's a lot of bills going through at the last minute, some of which we are concerning. And actually, SWSA sent a letter to the Education Committee to highlight some of those concerns. I want to make sure that, I don't know, are you reading these? Is everybody aware of what these are? Otherwise, we do not need to go through the list here.
No, thank you for providing that information.
So, and part of the concern is how quickly they're going through. There's very short time in terms of taking any public comments. So how it's happening is very concerning, much less some of the topics that are being included. And then also, the third item is the SWSA budget surplus letter. We are in a unique opportunity in that the state has a large budget surplus at this time. And this seems to be an opportunity to make an ask for some of the funding needs that we see in the future. Particularly, there was no inflationary increase provided going forward, and also increasing the share of special education. So these are very doable items because the money is there. And the idea is that we can talk about this budget surplus letter, but the idea is not just to get school boards and to sign on, but also businesses, recognizing that as a community, these are state funds, they're available, we should invest in education. So that's something we could talk about further, maybe another meeting, as to whether we're actually going to be signing on to that letter, and how we might approach businesses to also do the same. Also, there's also some tips and tip sheet on how to approach advocacy. That's more of a general thing that we can also, if you have more specific ideas on what we can do as a board to do that better, we can talk about that also. So, Judy, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I just think that the proposed bills are kind of coming in fast and furiously, and what I'm hearing is that, there's this belief that they won't actually become law, but they become political pieces in an election to say the governor vetoed this bill. It's proposed knowing perhaps that the governor would veto it, so that later in an election, it can be brought out to say the governor vetoed this bill. Some of them are really quite out there in terms of what would impact us in education, but realistically, it's very unlikely any of them will be moving forward, because the session's almost over. It's moving very quickly. So it's just
When is the session over?
end of March?
Or even early March, you're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could pull the plug at any time, especially in one of those.
Yeah, yeah. So I would just, keep an eye on them, and we keep an eye on them, and advocate through SWSA, who takes a position on a number of these things. And, one of the things we always strive for is that local control, and that's always our message to the legislators, I think the most recent bill had a lot of information in it about how to pay teachers and when to pay teachers and what to pay teachers, which really goes against local control.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's come up a lot in the last year, which I think involves local control, is the cursive writing issue, and the spend on cursive to teach cursive writing, the amount of money that it will cost for us to put that in, and it would take it out of our control, and the state tells us we have to do it. And I think those types of things that take away local control are no good for us.
There's a lot of pieces in there about charter schools and private schools as well, so it's just very interesting time, very political. So we're very active, Ms. Witkowski and I, in keeping up on things. So.
I just want to say, if it comes down to local control, you as a board member, that issue could come here. So you need to be thinking about, where you might be on the issue too, and know what the issues are. So keep reading. Thank you.
All right, any questions about that update? Thank you. Treasurer's report available in Board Docs Library if anybody is looking for it. Item 11, School Board Liaison Reports. Personnel and Policy 4690, Dismissal of Employees. This is an action item. Dr. Khan and Ms. Damers, please.
Yes, so policy for dismissal of employees, 4690, it was last updated in 2012. I think we recently in July went through the handbook, the employee handbook, which does also enlist the employee conduct, how, if they will be terminated. So we are recommending to eliminate this policy 4690 because that area of how to terminate the employees is already there in the employee handbook. It's just redundant policy as such.
Yeah, so just a little addition into what was mentioned. So since this policy was created in 2012, the board has done some significant updates to other policies that really cover this particular item, even more to a more level of specificity that provides a lot more significant guidance when reading the policy and for employees in terms of clarity. The other piece of this is that the employee handbook it has become more and more robust over the past couple of years. So a lot of these things that are discussed in terms of the language, throughout the handbook, we have things specifically first off in the acknowledgement that, employees, when they are new to the district and every single year are acknowledging the handbook, the different policies within it, understanding that if they were to violate those policies, they could have discipline up to and including termination. So it's really covered in a lot of different places, and this policy at this point, with the updates that have made, seems really redundant. And then the other piece that the conduct that this policy specifically references really intentionally is actually now covered in our staff appropriate use of technology policy that was updated in 2015 and is actually coming up for update again this year for review. So at this point, the recommendation would be to remove this policy. And I'm happy to take questions.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to eliminate policy 4690.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Personnel and policy, policy number 4221, contracted staff termination, of employment. Dr. Khan and Ms. Domers, please.
So policy 4221 was last updated in 2014. There is no significant change of the content of the policy. There's just a minor change of language of the policy. Like instead of annual contract, I think the legal department is recommending employment instead of person. So there's more of a kind of, proper utilization of vocabulary to demonstrate this policy in an effective manner, So there's just some change of language rather than a change of policy itself.
I have questions. Are dollar amounts included? Are those still appropriate? I mean, it's been 10 years, so are those still appropriate dollar amounts, or should they be increased? Or?
Yep, I did review those in comparison to other districts in the state and specifically in the area, and those are consistent with other districts for this type of role. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else? I'm looking for a motion to approve revised policy 4221 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Board liaison reports.
I met with Mrs. Shannon at Ben Franklin just this morning and was pleased to hear about all of the growth they've had. And they've had a strong retention of staff from last year to this year. And so the benefits of that experience and leadership are really playing out. She spoke a lot about how her goals around forming high-quality teams to reach their student achievement goals are really working out well, and that the challenge of bringing in, all members of the team, so perhaps some of your cross-categorical teachers and some of your special learning, English as a second language teachers, et cetera, that's really actually going well and their teams are thriving. She also mentioned that they're happy to be hosting 3 student teachers there right now, which is amazing and something they missed last year. So hopefully these opportunities that we provide for universities in the area may help with our recruitment efforts in the future. Things are going well at Ben Franklin.
I can just report real quick on the foundation. We haven't had a meeting, but every year the Education Foundation has scholarships available to our graduating seniors, and that process has started now. So there was a lot of, I thought it was very well timed social media presence yesterday. Vicki Gordani put out for all the seniors, as you're home on your ice day, start looking at these scholarships. So that's just, for anybody want to get that word out to our community, the senior scholarships for the foundation.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, school and community engagement reports. All I'm looking for a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C to discuss superintendent search.
So moved.
Second.
I think we need a roll call.
Yes. I vote aye. Mr. Sprague?
Aye.
Mrs. Witkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Alexandrovich?
Aye.
Mrs. Sapersky?
Aye.
Dr. Khan?
Aye.
Dr. Beer?
Aye.
We are in closed session
All right,
at
thank you.
7:29.
We, in closed session, we did meet with School Executive Connect, and please watch the website for further information about the superintendent search. Item 13, school board meeting debriefing. Is any school board member comments?
I loved seeing the kids today. Their vocabulary was just amazing to me
Yes.
to hear the
Holy
way they
cow.
talked,
They did a
the
good
words
job.
that they used. I just, kudos to those teachers and their parents, and they were an amazing group of little people.
I'm excited about the science curriculum and how it's changed, especially at the elementary level in the last couple of years. I think that's been positive change, the Project Lead the Way.
Yeah, especially at the early introduction of the science and a scientific approach and a thought process to have, that I know usually high school students do this, phenotype, the pedigree and all that stuff, and the third graders are doing it amazing. Kudos to them, and I think that's an amazing step going forward.
Well, and something I've learned as being the curriculum liaison is that they have identified a science lead for each grade level at the elementary levels who take on additional responsibility of making sure that the lessons are implemented and their staff has all the support, that all the other peers have the support they need. So it's really been a very intentional and well-run rollout.
And I also think we had a really great conversation regarding buildings and grounds.
Yeah, that was
I thought
amazing.
it was very informative. I felt really comfortable hearing what they had to say. Very impressed with having Cullen here and, what is it, PRA? Is that what it
Plunkett.
is? Plunkett.
Plunkett, et cetera. Yeah.
And great conversation regarding the superintendent search.
There's a lot of good work
Yeah,
going
we
on.
nailed it today.
I mean, I think there's a lot of pieces moving right now at a district level, and I think it's.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, thank you. Future agenda items, Pleasant View Elementary School presentation, early college credit and start college now, request approvals, coherence plan update, district administrator goals update, ESSER 3 update and feedback. I know that survey is out or soon to be out. Board self-evaluation discussion and SWSA updates coming up in the next month. Item 15, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at 8:52. Thank you.